Let me start off with the 5 most common reasons for failure. So first is we haven't, and Graham talked about this a bit, I think, we haven't identified the competency for which we need a specific who. We haven't given them the, hey, this is what I want you to work on. Number 2 is that goals aren't clearly articulated for that competency. So we're somehow, we don't, I don't know if we're afraid to, or we just don't know, but we don't set a target and say, hey, this is what we need to do. In terms of accountability, we don't have 30, 60, 90-day action plans for them. Specific action plans of what we want to do. Accountability meetings aren't consistent, and I'll talk about what consistency means in a sec in one of the slides here. And then finally is non-performance is stepped over. We're in this, most of us grew up in the sales business. We're about selling and treating people, trying to solve problems for people. In a leadership role, we can't step over non-performance. Right? That's got to be front and center around what we're talking about. And so let me go through these one by one, and then we'll stop at the end and do a question and answer and a summary. So leadership, what do I have to do if I'm going to really deliver, get my who's to deliver? And so number 1 is there's 4 things in leadership. Number 1 is I have to identify the competency. 2 is I have to set the goal. If let's say it's recruiting, and I'm going to set the goal that we're going to recruit X number of people. Or let's say it's accounting, right? Hey, I'm going to have this specific structure for accounting. Excuse me, David, I was thinking of our accounting department, what a great job you guys have done around replacing the accounting who's and getting results from them, right? And it really, you observed each one of these pieces, each one of these steps. Define the who. So once we know the competency, set the goal, define who's going to do it. And then finally create the structure and accountability, right? And so structure and accountability for me is about when are we having meetings and all of that kind of stuff. And we'll talk about that. And then finally address non-performance, right? We got to move people out that are non-performing. And I want to talk about numbers 3, 4, and 5 here for a second for define the who, create the structure, and address non-performance. And so who is the right who? These are really 4 questions. I'll pop them all up there. 4 questions that define the right who. Who runs the ball? Who takes the ball and runs with it? In other words, you're not pushing them. A rule that I have with a who is if it's hard, it's not right. If I got to constantly be holding their feet to the fire, it's hard, it's not right. If I have to make sure that as I delegate to folks that I'm giving them the how as well. And the last is who pushes you? What are the who's that call you up? Go, hey, Rob, it's Saturday morning. Rob, I'm texting you. What's going on over there about this? What's going on about that? The people that are actually pushing you. And I like to say, if it's hard, here's the if it's hard definition for me is, do you have to push them? Do they have initiative? Do they take the ball, or do you have to take the ball? Are they curious? Are they asking questions, listening to podcasts, reading books, doing the kind of the things that are getting them learning? And finally, do they add energy to the meeting? Do you leave a meeting thinking, oh my gosh, geez, how did I want to go to another meeting? Or do you get excited about going to the meeting? That's a good way to define your who, right? For our structure, the next number 4 was structure. First thing we've got to do is create a vision for what you want them to accomplish. So we've got our competency, we've identified our who. Now I got to create a vision for what I want to accomplish, right? Then we have to set some goals that'll get that vision in motion. And then we drive it down to 30, 60, 90-day action plans. And we post that tool often here. It's available for you on the real estate broker operating system. Use that with your people. Have them bring a 30, 60, 90-day action plan to your meeting, right? And keep the last one on file so you know what's accomplished and what's not. And then lastly, we need to make sure that we have regular meetings with an agenda. So every Friday, every Monday, it has to be regular meetings. Don't have to be long, and it needs to have an agenda. And the agenda for me is the 30, 60, 90, a dashboard if we have one. One of the things, there's a number of people here we've been doing some intensive recruiting work with, and we've been having some success. And I think part of it is really we focused on the dashboard. Rob, with your group, and Randall with your group, we've really said, hey, first item on the agenda, let's have a look at the dashboard, right? Because that's the accountability for me. and we've got to do it regularly. And people have to know, hey, we're looking at that dashboard. That's live. And you'll notice too, Wendell and Rob, when we get to the dashboard part, I don't bring up the dashboard. I get them to bring up the dashboard. It's their dashboard. And so I need them to own that dashboard. I'm not showing up with the dashboard. Let's talk about performance for a sec. We talked about measuring performance and how to address performance. Obviously, you want to acknowledge successes, and you want to do that early on in your meeting. We focus often on non-performance. Rob was talking at the 5-person, the 5 calls, and Adona talked about the 30. You want to pull the 30 people up front because everybody wants their confidence built, and it helps build confidence. Address non-performance. I would address it a little bit in the meeting, but I have a management mantra, and that is congratulate in public and chastise in private. And so if I'm really going to call somebody out, I'm going to say, hey, can you just stay behind or come on down to my office after the meeting, right? Randall and I were on a meeting the other day. I said, hey, you got to call some people, right? We're not going to call them out in the meeting. We're going to call them after the meeting, right? And make sure that we address non-performance because it's really important people know, hey, that doesn't work for us. Fixed structure breakdown. So think about when something goes wrong. Don't think about it like that. If things aren't working, don't think of it as going wrong. I guess that's what I want to say. So what I mean is don't think about it in the background of right or wrong. Think about it as a structure issue. What structure is breaking down here? You only made 5 calls. So that's not wrong. It's not right. It's not good. It's not bad. There's just a structure breakdown. Where in your structure, what needs to be fixed in your structure that will have you doing more work? If you can, a great leadership attribute, I guess I would call it, if you can take your conversations out of the realm or out of the background of right and wrong and good and bad, you will be able to communicate with people far more effectively. Because anytime I go on to somebody, hey, David, you're wrong. What you did was wrong. It's bad. What David go, oh, well, no, hey, like Rob said, oh, I had 3 days off. I tripped and fell on a banana peel. No, it's just a structure breakdown. It's not right or wrong. We got to fix it. There's been a breakdown here and we got to fix it. And then the final one is pretty straightforward, is change when required. And what I mean by change is change people when required. And don't be afraid to do that. Sometimes in the brokerage business, we think, if we change people, it's going to have some wider organizational impact, and it rarely does. Actually, this is where, David, I was thinking about your evolution, and Christy, your evolution in the finance department. You guys had somebody that was a non-performer. You dealt with them, you fired them, brought some new people in. And I don't think we lost any agents for that. I think people were like, hey, high five, right? And it fixed the whole system. And now you've got who's that execute for you in a very competent way. And to me, that was just a textbook case of addressing non-performance, change when required, getting new people in, creating the structure, creating the accountability, and now you've got everything running the way you want it. So great work there. And so let's do this. Let's do a quick summary for a powerful fall. I really want to get focused on focusing on the exponential, finding the right who's, on figuring out what structure that we need. So implementing a structure for those people, as we've done, Rob talked about, and a little bit, and I've done with a few others. We've got to make sure we're holding these folks accountable, and then we will get 10x growth. And just to go back to why this is important, a lot of us have the profitability puzzle solved. Now we can take a little bit of those resources and invest them in exponential growth, in getting ourselves to the next level in a much quicker and easier fashion.